Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. Of course, this show is presented by Fox One. Jack, how are you doing on this lovely Tuesday evening as we record this episode?
Well, I had an afternoon nap to get over, staying up all night watching Dodgers and Blue Jays last night. The game four is just starting as we record. So I'll go back and catch up and rewatch that from the beginning once we're done recording today.
Absolutely wild game three between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. I have to admit, I eventually just turned it off and went to sleep because I think I tapped out around the 16th inning. That's as far as I made it. But yes, the World Series continues to go on. And in the meantime, we continue to think about this Arizona Diamondbacks offseason and the best moves that this team might want to make over the course of the winter. And Jack, Monday was like Christmas morning for all of us people in the baseball world because Jim Bowden released his article that he does every year where he ranked the top 50 free agents available. And he also attached each of these 50 free agents to some teams that he identified as the best fit for each of those players. We're going to talk about a variety of players over the course of this episode. Mostly, we're going to be kind of bargain hunting based on the numbers that Jim Bowden gave. But to start out, Jack, we're going to not bargain hunt at all and talk about Framber Valdez, the left-handed pitcher, longtime member of the Houston Astros. We talked about his name a while back on this show as a potential option for the D-backs. Do I think this is likely, Jack? Of course, I do not. I would be, frankly, quite shocked if the D-backs did this. But we've also been a little surprised in recent years at how much Ken Kendrick has been willing to spend. And Framber Valdez is kind of the type of pitcher that the D-backs have gravitated toward in the past. He's a veteran. He has a long track record of pretty consistent results. He's a lefty in his early 30s. The track record there for the D-backs is not great. Maybe that's a reason not to sign him, but he is the type of pitcher that the Diamondbacks need going into 2026.
Well, if they get the kind of pitcher that he's been in the past, then yes, that's what they need. But I think you hit the nail on the head. He's got over 1,000 innings. Almost all of that has come in the last 5-6 years. And he'll be 32 years old. His velocity's still up, but, he was a little less dominant. Strikeout rates have not been what they were earlier. His walk rate was up. I mean, he's a really good pitcher. 3.66 ERA, 3.75 xERA, 3.37 FIP. He's been basically a four-WAR pitcher every year for the last 4 years. It's like lock him in. There you go, 4-WAR. But he's also going to require a long contract. I think Mr. Bowden projected, 190?
6 and 190, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's like, okay, what's going to happen to him in year 1, 2, or 3? It's very hard for me to think that the D-backs would or should go into that deep end of the pool again on a left-handed 30-something-year-old starter. Track record or no.
We've heard Mike Hazen talk recently about how this is an area of the market that the D-backs still need to engage in moving forward, despite what happened with Madison Bumgarner, Eduardo Rodriguez, Jordan Montgomery, most recently Corbin Burns, who pitched pretty well, but then, of course, went down with Tommy John surgery. The D-backs have been clear, Jack, that this is still an area of the market that they want to engage in moving forward. And that's why I think it's still worth having a discussion about a Framber Valdez when this team clearly needs rotation help going into next year. And if they're really serious about trying to put a contender together, like he's the type of pitcher you'd probably need to do that. But I also agree with you. Is he the guy that you want to make this bet on? I think there are valid reasons to be concerned about what this is going to look like in year 3, year 4, year 5. So I would be pretty shocked if the D-backs went down that road. But there are worse decisions they could make this offseason, Jack. I mean, Framber Valdez at the top of this rotation. If you get Corbin Burns back at some point next year, if he looks anything like himself, of course, Ryan Nelson, you expect to be back in a prominent role. maybe you could talk yourself into this being a decent rotation if the D-backs went down that road.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm fully cognizant of what Mike has said in regards to that particular market of high-end free agents, but I also think that in order to believe that the D-backs would be players at that level again, then you have to believe that Ken Kendrick and Derek Hall were completely sandbagging and playing possum when they told us twice on air, on the record, that they're cutting payroll.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, 6
so
and 190 would basically, unless it was like a super low dollar figure in year one and then it escalated from there. I mean, that theoretically would take up just about all the money that you have to spend this offseason.
exactly. I mean, we've crunched the numbers here. When you add up everything that they're actually committed to fill out a full roster, guaranteed contracts, arbitration estimates, and then filling in at the very least league minimum guys, allowing for some injury replacements and a few other things that they have to budget for. They really only have somewhere between 27 and 37 million dollars to spend if they're cutting payroll just to say 180 something. 175, 180. If they're going below that number, then they only got about $25 million to spend. So, I mean, you're going to put all of it into one starter and then still not have a bullpen and have multiple other holes in your lineup. I just don't see how they can piece it together that way. My gut tells me that the most sensible thing for them to do is to use trade assets to get as good a starting pitcher as they can. And then from there, but somebody that's still under control, maybe arbitration eligible, not in his last year of arbitration at $20 million. Hello, Tariq Skubal.
You're killing the Tarek Skubal dream, Jack, already?
Well, I mean, you can get him, but you got to trade Ketel Marte or you got to empty the farm for 1 year of a guy that you can't sign for next year
And
and
that you
beyond.
still have to pay close to $20 million.
Yeah. But I mean, if they can if they can use their trade assets to go get a guy, a good starting pitcher with 2 or 3 years left of control at arbitration wages, now you're not breaking the bank. And then, and we're going to, see why I'm thinking this way, then they can turn around and start filling chunks here and chunks there and maybe, find some good value picks free from the free agent list. So I think you use your trade capital, go get the best starting pitcher you can get with trade capital, and then use your somewhat meager free agent dollars to then fill the rest of the holes.
The only way I could see Framber Valdez possibly happening is if somehow there's a situation similar to Corbin Burns last year. I mean, if you told either of us at the beginning of last offseason that the D-backs were going to come away with Corbin Burns, like I would have thought you were crazy. I mean, that wasn't even at all on my radar. But what happened is Corbin Burns really wanted to go to Arizona. He was willing to take a little bit less money in order to make that happen. I highly doubt that's the case for Framber Valdez, but yeah, it would have to be some kind of special circumstance. Barring that, yeah, the D-backs have talked about cutting payroll. If you're doing that, you're probably not bringing in Framber Valdez. So moving on from Valdez, Jack, coming back down to earth, perhaps just a little bit, or maybe not coming back down to earth at all. As we move down Jim Bowden's list, the highest ranked player that he had the Diamondbacks listed as a fit for was first baseman slash third baseman Munetaka Murakami out of Japan, a 25-year-old, corner infielder, big time power here. Jack last year, 24 home runs in 69 games, playing out in NPB. There are some questions here, though, in terms of his contact ability. He ran about a 27% strikeout rate last year over in Japan, which is kind of alarmingly high relative to the rest of that league. And oh, by the way, Jim Bowden is projecting him to get 6 years and $160 million. I think Framber Valdez is kind of crazy, Jack. This might be even crazier. I just cannot imagine the Diamondbacks giving that kind of money to a really unproven player who plays, is probably going to wind up playing first base.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's even adequate defensively at first base. I mean, there seems to be some question about his defense even at first. So, I mean, look, he's got big time power. I think he had a 58 homer season, a few years ago. I think his
56 back in 2022. Yeah, pretty
yeah,
crazy.
I mean, his production's waned a little bit since then, and he's had some injury issues. He's a little chunky. Um, I mean, he's kind of fat in the face and fat in the neck. His body is more of a chunky body style. I don't know how well he's going to hold up physically, defensively, and whether or not that strikeout rate is going to translate into, over 30% in the majors. We asked our good friend Boris McCracken about his thoughts, and what he said was the strikeout rate is concerning, but not as concerning as it would be, say, if a guy was carrying that kind of strikeout rate, like in Double A.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
Japan is much better, of course, than is better than Triple A, less than MLB. So 27% doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be much over that in Major League Baseball, but he's unlikely to be much lower than it either. So you got to knock off 40% of his home runs and figure the strikeout rate goes up and feel happy if he hits 250. I'm not spending that kind of money at first base for that guy.
Well, interestingly enough, the next name that Jim Bowden has connected to the D backs is at number 17. It's a familiar name, Josh Naylor. He mentions the Diamondbacks as one of 5 potential fits there, a projected contract of 4 years and 90 million, Jack. I know Josh Naylor was good for the D backs. He was great for the Mariners. I know Mariners fans are already talking about bringing Naylor back as if that's like a done deal and absolutely has to happen. But I'm pretty skeptical for kind of the same reason here, Jack, that the D backs spend that money on Josh Naylor, a player who's not real athletic, despite what the stolen base numbers would tell you. I have a hard time imagining the D backs spend that kind of money to bring Josh Naylor back.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing too is, look, as good a hitter as Josh Naylor is, and he's a good guy and all of that. His defense does not profile like what the deep backs are after.
Right.
They're not looking for that kind of defensive player. They're looking to upgrade the defense if at all possible. So I don't look, the corner infield defense for the D-backs was very weak last year, and Josh Naylor was a big part of that. So I don't think that they want to put that kind of money into him when they're trying to re-emphasize defense.
At number 18, Jim Bowden has another first baseman, and he lists the Diamondbacks as a potential fit. Number 18 is Kazuma Okamoto, another guy coming over from Japan. He will reportedly be posted this offseason by his team out in Japan. Projected contract here, 4 years, 90 million. Again, Jack, exact same numbers as Josh Naylor. Okamoto, different type of player than Murakami. The power is not quite as monstrous. His high season high for home runs is 41. He did that back in 2023. He's a little bit older at 29 years old. Murakami is 25. Maybe a steadier profile here, Jack, a player that feels like a safer bet to translate over to the majors, but the ceiling is also probably not as high. And again, are the D backs going to spend that kind of money on a first baseman? I really don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he is a safer bet, higher floor as far as translating into the majors. I mean, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight 30 homer seasons, then the 41 and 27. Last year, he played half a season, had 15. He also hit 327 with over 1,000 OPS. His walk to strikeout ratio is about 0.5 to 1. He's not a big, he strikes out, but not crazy. But for sure, he's a better defender. I mean, he's played a lot of third base, but a lot of first base too. He can, scoot across the diamond if he has to, but he's definitely a better defensive first baseman. And so that's something that, the D backs might consider there, is the fact that the guy can play decent defense. And 4 years, 90 is easier to swallow than 160, as far as time and commitment. If they could get that backloaded, they still got to cough up the posting fee. So
Right.
Okamoto is probably a little bit more attractive to me as a fit than Murakami would be.
Hmm. Well, we've talked about a few possibilities so far. We've got a whole lot more to get to on Jim Bowden's list. We'll do some bargain shopping. We'll talk about some players that we are confident are actually in the Diamondbacks price range, unlike some of these guys we've touched on so far. So don't go away. We'll be right back here on Snakes Territory.
The 2025 baseball season is down to what matters most, lifting the trophy. With DraftKings Sportsbook, you're right there for every pitch, every moment. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. This is what October baseball is all about. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
We are back here on Snakes Territory, presented by Fox One. Jack, the next name on the list is another familiar one. Eugenio Suárez is at number 19. We really were not planning to discuss Gino. I have a hard time imagining the D-backs bringing Gino back, but I do find myself fascinated at Jim Bowden's contract projection here, Jack. 3 years, $72 million. Does that pass the smell test for you? I'm thinking it's going to be quite a bit lower than that with the second half that Gino just had.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of a lot of this list, it seems high to me in that top 20, 25 guys, the top 30. Yeah. Getting that third year, getting $24 million a year. I know he hit a boatload of home runs, but teams are aware of the swing and miss issues and the slow last 2 months of the season. Gino is all or nothing. I mean, like, we love the guy, for who he is as a person. And when he has a big game and a big moment like he did in the playoffs, it's joyous. I mean, you couldn't be happier than you feel for any other guy. But and I hate that there's such a big but here. I mean, the defense has just really gotten quite atrocious. And the D-backs are not going to go back down that road of all or nothing at the plate and bad defense. They're just not going to do it. And certainly not for 372. So, no.
I think after seeing what we saw at the trade deadline, where clearly the market for Gino was not anything like what some people thought it would be, it's hard for me to imagine that his market is suddenly going to drive up to 3 years and $72 million in the offseason. I mean, if his price was what the Mariners paid at the trade deadline, I don't think that's a player that's about to get over $20 million a year for 3 more seasons. So certainly
his guarantee is going to be half that.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll get like 236 or something like that.
Yeah. I very much agree with you. That seems enormously high to me. All right, back to reality. Players the D-backs actually could sign. Merrill Kelly, a name that we have certainly discussed on this show that people around the Diamondbacks organization certainly would love to have back on this team next year. 2 years, $30 million, Jack. That's what Jim Bowden has. Pretty similar numbers to what you and I discussed here recently. I could see something like that happening. I think it could make sense for both sides.
Yeah, if you remember when we spoke last time, my big contention was 37-year-olds aren't getting 37-year-old starters that aren't elite Hall of Fame caliber pitchers weren't getting multi-year deals at that age. They just weren't.
Yeah.
And we went back over 5 years of history, and there was like nobody there. And I had to actually go to look at age 35 and 36 players to find a comparable for somebody at least got a 2 or 3 year deal, to Merrill. If we harken back to that conversation, I kind of landed on really like 224. And that might be a little bit low, but 230 seems to be the upper end. So I would say that Bowden's number, while realistic at 230, to me, that's the upper end of what Merrill could or should get.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yeah. I think the D-backs would love to have Merrill Kelly back, and it seems pretty clear that Merrill is going to be interested. We'll see if the pieces fit together there. Now, Jack, we're going to kind of transition into bargain shopping mode. We're going to sort of zoom toward the bottom of this list. I know you have a number of names that you highlighted here. One of them that
I
was
I
sorry, go ahead.
literally went from the bottom of the list and worked my way up.
And there are some players here that totally could make sense for the Diamondbacks. I think the most interesting one to me, Jack, was Brandon Woodruff, a pitcher who had shoulder surgery, missed all of the 2024 season, came back and pitched a little bit in 2025, was really good for the Brewers when he was healthy. Unfortunately, had a lat injury that knocked him out toward the end of the season. He didn't pitch in the playoffs at all. But Brandon Woodruff, I mean, when healthy, Jack, his ceiling is really high. I mean, he could be the best pitcher on the Diamondbacks, probably would be the best pitcher on the Diamondbacks if he was healthy. And as much as you've got some innings to fill going into 2026, there's also something to be said for shooting high in terms of how high a quality of innings you could get. Brandon Woodruff, I don't know if the D-backs could do any better than that.
Yeah, I mean, if the number that Bowden is putting out there is accurate, which is a big if, of course, if that's a number that can get him 222, I believe it was $11 million a year.
Yeah.
I roll the dice on him. The lat strain. I mean, that's a similar injury to what Eduardo Rodriguez had in 2024. And it's not great that he had a lat injury coming off, surgery. But I mean, he made 12 starts through 65 innings. And he had a 3.20 ERA, 2.18 xERA, and 3.17 FIP. Those are elite numbers.
Yeah.
Right. In less than half a season, he put up, 2 WAR. So, I mean, that's a 4 WAR pitcher that, you're going to have a hard time finding a guy like that for that kind of money. And yes, there's an injury risk there, but there's going to be an injury risk with all these guys. I'd rather roll the dice on somebody like Woodruff than I would on, say, similarly priced Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty's given more innings the last 3 years, certainly, but he's put up like a 3.9 ERA and, xERA and FIP over 4. So maybe he's more of a sure thing to give you innings, perhaps. But if all things being equal financially, where Bowden projects Jack Flaherty and Woodruff to have the same salary. Well, you guys know how I bet. I like the long shots. I want something that's going to pay off. So I'd roll the dice on Woodruff before I took the quote unquote more sure thing in Flaherty.
Do you think these contract predictions are accurate? I mean, I know it's easy to throw tomatoes at Jim Bowden as he's trying to make all these predictions. It's really hard to go through and make contract predictions for all these guys at this point in the offseason. I find myself though, Jack, like Jack Flaherty, I don't think there's any way he gets 2 and 22. I think it's going to be higher than that. I mean, Jack Flaherty pitched playoff like meaningful games for the Dodgers last season. He had a 3.85 FIP. He still posted. I know there's some injury history with him as well, but he made 31 starts this year, 161 innings, and he had 188 strikeouts in 161 innings. Teams pay for swing and miss. I think it's going to be double that. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Jack Flaherty got 40, 50 million, something in that range.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I look at 161 innings, 4.64 ERA, 4.03 xERA, 3.85 FIP, and I'm thinking, well, that's actually probably a little bit better than Zach Gallen.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, and Jack Flaherty was really good last year. I know it was, it was 28 starts, 162 innings. Like, he hasn't been a guy to give you 200 innings on a year in, year out basis, but he was really effective. I mean, he was one of the most highly sought after starters at last year's trade deadline and finished the year with a 3.17 ERA. Like, I think he's going to get a lot more money than that. And I kind of think Brandon Woodruff is going to get more than 2 and 22 also. I mean, if Matthew Boyd got 2-29 from the Chicago Cubs entering this season. Kind of a similar situation with all sorts of injury risk. I mean, Brandon Woodruff has the better track record than Matthew Boyd. I would think I'd probably take the over on $30 million for Woodruff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for sure. And again, it shouldn't be. We're not picking on Jim Bowden. I mean, he's the first one out there with his
Yeah.
numbers.
I
So
wouldn't want to be the
kudos.
first one to make these predictions myself.
Yeah, I mean, MLB Trade Rumors will be coming out with their numbers list and predictions for all of the top 50 or 100 guys. Maybe somebody else like Ken Rosenthal. I don't know if he does it as well. And of course, Roster Resource over at Fangraphs. They'll have data in there. Maybe they'll do their crowdsourcing estimates or whatever. There's going to be other estimates that are coming out, and it's always good to compare all of them and see the reasoning and rationale and methodology between all of them, and then kind of see, well, which one feels like it's closer to reality.
Another name that I know stood out to you here, Jack, Nick Martinez, who's actually ranked higher on Jim Bowden's list than either Jack Flaherty or Brandon Woodruff. He has Martinez up at number 39. Projected a 1-year, $11 million deal, which seems maybe a little bit light to me once again. But he's also, in his little blurb that he wrote about Martinez, he's talking about Martinez probably moving to a long reliever spot starter type role. And certainly, if a team signed Nick Martinez to do that, then yeah, he's not making this year. He made $21 million. He accepted the qualifying offer. Certainly, no team would give him that to be a long reliever spot starter type guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the D-backs were able to get him for that, they would use him in a rotation, and they would only bump him to long relief spot starter if he didn't perform well.
Right.
If he got crowded out because there was, Christian Men has been lights out, and here comes Corbin Burns, hot and coming in hot off the IL, then and everyone else is healthy and doing good, then sure you could see something like that happening. But 1 year 11 for this guy. I mean, 166 innings, 4.45 ERA, but 3.99 xERA, 4.33 FIP. I mean, that's better than most of the rotation not named Ryan Nelson last year.
Yeah, that's true. Another name here, Jack, Jose Quintana, who of course was a member of the Milwaukee Brewers this past season. He did the thing again where he's just consistently somehow just continues to be good. He's 36 years old. This year he went 11-7 with a 3.86 ERA in 131 and 2/3 innings for the Milwaukee Brewers. He signed for 1 year and $4 million this past season. Jim Bowden has him listed here at 1 year and $5 million for next year. I don't know, Jack. That's pretty compelling. Like Jose Quintana, I know it's not flashy. There's certainly risk. You're not expecting him to make all 32, 33 starts. But, I mean, he just kind of goes out there year after year and continues to be pretty good. If you can get anything quality in the rotation for a year and $5 million, I mean, it's hard to do better than that, given the starting pitching market year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, 3.96 ERA, but a 5.18 xERA, 4.81 FIP. The year before, 3.75 ERA, 4.52 xERA, 4.56 FIP. So he's like doing death-defying things. His strikeout rate cratered to 6.08 per 9, and his walk rate went up to 3.42. I mean, I don't know how he managed it. I really don't.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years combined, 4.80 xERA, 4.67 FIP. I mean, yeah, at $4 million. I mean, if they get him for $4 or $5 million, sure, why not? And see if he can throw his slop up there again. I mean, his fastball is averaging 90 miles an hour. It's changeup, curveball, whatever. So he's going to have to spin the ball and thumb it up there and junk ball his way into, five innings and, 2 or 3 runs allowed. Sure. If he can do that on, 2/3 of his starts, then why not? But that's kind of where I'm talking about, that's not your number one option, but if you trade for a good starting pitcher,
Yeah.
and then you've got that guy as your fifth starter, and if he falters, then you bring in Christian Mena, or, if you give him half a season, you're not locked into a big contract. If it doesn't work out, you just, hasta la vista, baby. And you see if you can get lucky with the guy at $4 or $5 million. That's kind of what I'm talking about at the beginning of the show. Trade for a guy that's, somebody you're really counting on,
Right.
and then go bargain basement for your fifth starter.
I think it makes a lot of sense. One thing that concerns me with Quintana is that he pitched for the Brewers this past year and the Mets the 2 years before that. Like, those are teams that have really good pitching reputations, teams that just always seem to have guys performing over and above what their stuff would tell you they should be capable of. The D-backs do not exactly have that reputation around the league right now. No secret there. So it's a little bit hard to believe that someone like Quintana would come in to the D-backs organization and flourish in the same way. But yeah, I mean, it's $4 or $5 million. As you said, it's kind of a low risk, medium reward sort of situation where it could pay off for the D-backs. If you get another starter you feel better about, and Jose Quintana is your number 5 guy, you could do a whole lot worse than that. We have plenty of other guys to get to, including one Paul Goldschmidt, who we've talked about before. But Jim Bowden made a prediction at what Goldie would receive in free agency. We'll talk about him, some other guys on the other side of this break here on Snakes Territory.
The old card experience was a slow burn, long grind, right? Find the box, find the pack you want, open the pack. Most of the cards, nah, right? You got one that's worth something. Now send it in for grading. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. You want to sell it? Now you got to put it up. Then you got to ship it out. Yeah. There's one solution for that, and it's called
Arena Club. And it's just on a click of a dime. You get on your computer, you type in, get the Arena Club app, go on there, type in, put some money in, and type in exactly what kind of cards you want, and voila, it's a great experience. And I think that's what people miss nowadays, the experience, the excitement of getting a new card. You never know what you're going to get, an autograph card, anything you could think of. Really cool stuff.
You can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/foul. See what gets Todd Father so excited. When he gets that digital slab pack, it's like butter, baby.
Butter.
Well, here we are back on Snakes Territory, presented by Fox One. I don't know, Jack, we want to just jump right to Goldie?
Well, I mean, we got a few more pitchers to talk about, actually.
Okay, all right.
I did want to talk about Adrian Hauser real quick and just get your thoughts on him.
Sure.
So, I mean, he threw 125 innings last year. He was lights out for the White Sox, at least in terms of ERA. And then he got traded and he went over to Tampa Bay and he struggled with his ERA. And in both cases, like, his xERA was the same for both teams, 4.04 for the White Sox, 4.08 for the Rays, but his ERA was 2.10 for the White Sox, 4.79 for the Rays. So for the year, he was 3.31 ERA, 4.06 xERA, 3.81 FIP. Mid-90s fastball, and he can get it up over 90. He was throwing 95 miles an hour last year. It seems weird he didn't strike out more guys than he didn't strike out as many guys as you would think he would. He had good defense behind him in Tampa, but I think that this is another guy that potentially is in that same category. He's 32, going to be 33 next year. So, I mean, Bowden had him getting $4 million also, same as Quintana. So I just wanted to add that name. I wasn't just saying, oh, Jose Quintana or bust. I'm just talking about the types of guys that might be out there. And again, $4 million for Hauser might be too low. But, if they could get him for $4 million and you roll the dice on that guy as your fifth starter, you could be doing a lot worse.
It's a really interesting profile. Yeah, I mean, his sinker averaged 94.4. That's a pitch he really leans on. His four-seamer averaged 95.2. He doesn't really have, just looking at his numbers from the past couple of years, he doesn't have a great slider, and that's, certainly going to be an important pitch for him against righties. Whiff rate is in the low 20s. Opponent batting average is actually pretty high for a slider. So I guess that kind of helps us understand like how this guy is throwing pretty hard, but not really striking anyone out, or at least not striking out as many as you'd expect. His changeup numbers are pretty good. He had a 35.1% whiff rate there. So kind of a strange profile, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if that guy's your number 5 starter, like, I mean, last year he finished with a 3.31 ERA in 21 starts. I mean, that you could roll with that, given what kind of starting pitching the D-backs have had the past few years.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't count on a 3.31
No,
ERA.
no,
I would hope to repeat something like 4.
right.
I mean, xERA, FIP, and xFIP are all in the 4 range, right? I mean, that's kind of what you hope for there.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's totally fair. Should we transition to some relievers here, Jack? I know you had Kyle Finnegan on the list. Finnegan, Jim Bowden is projecting it a fairly modest contract, 1 year, 6.25 million. I again think it's going to be more than that, given the season that he just had. He's never been a truly dominant closer, but he just kind of posts year after year, continues to be viable in that role, and there's not that many pitchers that can do that year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years total. Last 3 years, 3.65 ERA, 4.06 xERA, 4.03 FIP, 90 saves. He was very good in the regular season for Detroit. Once he went over there, I think he struggled a bit in the postseason. So going to be 34 years old. Maybe that's Paul Sewald all over again, at that age and $6 million. But, if they're not going to spend big money on the bullpen, then these are the next tier of guys that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I don't know if we want to backtrack a little bit. He had Devin Williams at 1 year, 10 million. And you all know how we feel about Devin Williams. At one year, 10 million is like, sign me up.
Yeah. At that point, like, you can't wait until free agency begins. You just have to find a way to break the rules and just sign that contract right now. I don't think there's any way Devin Williams goes for 1 year and 10 million. Maybe 1 year and like 20. Like, I could see a team just being like, all right, we know you just had a down season. We're not going to give you a long-term deal. We want to see if you can prove it, but we're willing to pay you a lot of money because we think you're going to be pretty darn good this next year. So I could see like a short-term deal, really high dollar value, and then let Devin Williams go back out and get his money next offseason. Maybe it's a year and an option or something like that. But 1 year, 10 million. I mean, there's just no way, Jack. I mean, his stuff is still too good. His strikeout rate was still way too high. We were talking about 3 years on our show, and I think 30-40 million, something like that. I think you'd feel pretty good about getting Devin Williams in that range. No way it happens for 1 year and 10.
Yeah. By the way, I was just kind of scrolling back up to the top of the list. We forgot to kind of mention one guy, Zach Gallen.
Yeah.
Bowden has him at 5 years, 135 million, with a long list of teams that would be interested. So that's considerably more than the 480 that we talked about before.
I think it's fair to take the over on 4 years and 80 million. Just given what teams are willing to pay for starting pitching, I feel like I'm just sort of blown away every winter. Like, oh my gosh, that pitcher got that contract. I think that's probably going to happen with Zach Gallen to an extent. I don't know about 5 and 135 though, Jack. That feels like a bit of a gamble given the direction that Gallen has been headed the past year and a half. I could see it being over 100 though. Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I would maybe settle more in the 5 years, 110, maybe something in that range. 135. I mean, you really need that guy to be close to an ace caliber pitcher if you're giving him $27 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a lot of confidence. But if there's always teams that are out there looking for, what they perceive to be frontline starting pitching. And it's, I can see where Bowden's coming from. It's like because he's got such a long list of teams, somebody's going to cough it up.
Right.
So what I wanted to say real quickly, though, is the reason I went back up the list and got distracted is because the other reliever that I mentioned, or that I wanted to mention, was Drew Pomeranz, who's Bowden's projecting at 1 year, $5 million. He's 37 years old and missed 3 seasons, but then last year, all of a sudden, he comes back, and in 50 innings, he's got a 2.17 ERA and a 3.53 xERA and a 3.36 FIP. He was pretty darn good left-hander last year. So, that's a guy that maybe the D-backs would be interested in if they could get him for that number or a little bit lower. And the reason I'm dumpster diving on these relievers is because Bowden's projecting 4 years, $88 million for Edwin Diaz and 4 years, $80 million for Robert Suárez. So,
wow.
Yeah, if you want to play at the top end of the reliever market, again, if you could get Devin Williams for 1 year, $10 million, now he's projecting, sign me up, boom, done, end of story, end of podcast. But I don't, I don't think that's going to happen. So that's why I'm dumpster diving over here.
Drew Pomeranz is interesting. I mean, he's entering his age 37 season. He had a 2.17 ERA this past year. I don't really think you'd expect that moving forward. I mean, it's a 3.54 expected ERA. 2.17 ERA, as you said, but I think a 3.36 FIP. So I think he was a good reliever, but his velocity was 2 miles an hour down from where it was back in 2020, which is, or I guess they have, okay. So 2021, he was at 93.9. 2020 was at 94.6. This was his first year pitching in the majors in 4 years, where he was actually healthy. So it's a unique situation. I guess maybe I shouldn't be comparing his velocity now to 4 years ago. I mean, that was forever ago at this point. But his overall whiff rate was basically average. He wasn't missing a ton of bats. I think he's a solid lefty, but I don't think you're expecting Drew Pomeranz to come in and be, elite for you. But to your point, I mean, 1 year, $5 million, like you would take, a low mid 3 ERA from a left-handed reliever for that.
Yeah. Or they can just go and sign Jalen Beeks for $3 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that too. Just go bring Beeks back, devil, and all that.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, I guess those are all of our pitchers, Jack. That brings us to the position player side of things, where of course we have to talk about Paul Goldschmidt. Jim Bowden, this was interesting. His list of best team fits, it's only the Diamondbacks. He did not put any other team on that list. It was just the Diamondbacks, and his contract prediction was 1 year and $10 million. We already heard a report from Gambo, Jack, that this is something the D-backs would consider. But at 1 year and $10 million, I don't think they'd consider it. That's a lot of money for, at this point, what Goldie is, which is a short side platoon first baseman. I mean, there's a lot of name credibility with him, and certainly the fans would, I'm sure, love to have him back. But I don't think you can give a short side platoon first baseman that much money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, also, if I'm Paul Goldschmidt, if I can't get a starting role and I have to accept a short side platoon, I'm probably I'd rather sign for $1 million or $2 million less and go to a team that has a chance to get in the postseason again.
Are you saying the Diamondbacks don't have a chance to get to the postseason next year, Jack?
That have a very strong chance, that are considered one of the favorites to get back to the postseason. The Diamondbacks certainly will not be one of the favorites to get back to the postseason. They're probably going to go into the season with a 33% chance to make the postseason, unless they just make some unbelievable signings and trades.
Framber Valdez, he changed the equation, Yeah, I think that's very fair. I still could see it. I mean, I think the Goldschmidt fit is clear from the Diamondbacks perspective. I mean, what do you think, Jack, is the highest number that would be reasonable for Goldie if it, given that he's just going to be a short side platoon guy, maybe 5 million. Does that seem like a
Yeah, I mean
reasonable upper
6,
bound?
maybe an extra million in there because of the name and the pedigree and who he is and relationship with the organization in the past and all of that. So maybe $6 million, but I don't see him doing that.
Yeah. I think you're right to consider his side of things. Like as his career kind of winds to an end, he probably wants to play in the playoffs again. It totally makes sense for him to chase after a situation like that. There's another name kind of along these lines on the position player side, Jack Miguel Andujar, third baseman / outfielder. Jim Bowden did not have him linked to the Diamondbacks, but he plays positions that the D-backs need help, where the D-backs need help. Contract prediction there from Bowden is pretty similar. 1 year, $5.5 million. What are you thinking about Miguel Andujar?
Well, I'm thinking that he's right-handed and he's been crushing lefties, and he's got some good batting numbers in a platoon role, and so he's just a name out there. Look, the D-backs are probably going to need another right-handed bat, right? So maybe he can play some left field for them. He's played some outfield. He's listed as third base outfielder. He's not great defensively in any way, shape, or form, but maybe he could fill the Randall Grichuk type role. Just one other thing on this note, there is a poster on Twitter that mentioned that he saw on Lourdes Gurriel's story on Instagram, which is now, I guess it was only up for 24 hours, that he was seemingly having some rather intense workouts, that he wasn't just walking around.
Huh.
And so that led to some optimism that maybe he's not going to miss the whole first half of the season. I have no idea. It's total speculation. But I just wanted to throw that in there. As we're thinking about needing a right-handed bat that can play left field, I did want to mention that there was some inkling out there that Lourdes's rehab might be going pretty well.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, certainly Lourdes' status, if they are expecting him back sooner than later, it would lessen the need for a right-handed hitting outfielder for sure. And Duhar is interesting to me, Jack, because he way outperformed his expected stats this past year. He hit 318 with an 822 OPS, but his expected batting average was 269. His xWOBA was 307, which is actually well below average. So I think you'd have to expect pretty heavy regression with Miguel Andujar. But again, if he's just a short side platoon type role, then I guess that's fine. He also was -7 outs above average. So to what we were talking about earlier with the D-backs wanting to get better defensively going into next year, not a great fit on that side of things. But frankly, Paul Goldschmidt is not nearly the first baseman that he was when he was with the D-backs a long time ago either.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a Dave McKay factor, right? Andujar is not 35; he's going to be 31.
Right.
You give him in the hands of Dave McKay, and maybe he can give you some reasonable defense. And even if you go back to 23 and 24, his WRC plus was 105, 103. Again, we're talking about short side platoon, right hand hitter. He's a career 107 WRC plus. Yes, I expect some regression. I don't expect 125 like he had this past year. And he was red hot for the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, he put up a 159 in his time in Cincinnati. So I don't expect that to happen, and that's what drove his numbers up out of whack with his expected. But he's a league average hitter, a little bit above league average hitter that definitely hits lefties better than righties. So that's a possibility. Again, as a low cost guy, they need a right-handed bat, or do you just want to, roll the dice with Christian Robinson, Tim Tawa? I mean, that's where you're at. You got a proven league average bat, or you go with your young guys out of the minor leagues that haven't hit the majors yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess it is one thing to kind of look at what's out there in free agency and wonder, oh, is this player worth such and such dollar value? But when you look at what the D-backs have in-house, like the types of players they would have to count on if they didn't fill some of these gaps on the roster, then it provides some perspective. Like, what are you willing to expect from Tim Tawa next year? What are you willing to expect from Christian Robinson? My guess is the D-backs are going to want to add several players just to add some cushion and not put so much pressure on some of those young guys. That's everyone I had on my list, Jack. Is there anyone we're missing? Anyone you want to circle back to here?
No, I think we covered, the most intriguing guys for me today on that list.
Bowden has Luis. This is like totally not diamond. Like D-backs are not going to sign Luis Arise, but 2 years and $30 million for Luis Arise. Just fascinating. Like, would any team actually pay Luis Arise that at this point? I know he's still like never strikes out, but he's basically a replacement level player this past year. It's just a fascinating free agent case.
Yeah, well, I mean, batting titles, flags fly forever, all that stuff.
do batting title flags fly forever? I guess so.
I guess.
I guess he was worth 1.3 WAR according to Baseball Reference this past year. It was better than I thought. Well, yeah, we could go through and talk about all of the other names on this list, but we're gonna go ahead and stop there on this edition of Snakes Territory. We would love to hear from all of you what you thought of all these names that we discussed. Drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Just be sure as well to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Sign up for notifications so that you never miss an episode of the show. If you're joining us over on an audio-only platform, it would also really help us out if you'd leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us over on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. And our show is at Snakes Territory. Of course, you can find all of Jack's great written work over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. Am I getting that right, Jack? Did the URL change?
They added /on SI.
Okay. So it's si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks/on SI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just go to my Twitter page, and then there's a link there if you go to my bio.
That's probably the easier way to get there at this point. If you find it once, you can just bookmark the page and you never have to think about the URL ever again. Be sure to find Jack's work over there. Thank you again to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back with another edition of Snakes Territory very, very soon.